So for number 12, it asks, which choice most accurately and effectively represents the information in the graph? So the sentence it refers to says, the size of the ice sheet fluctuates seasonally. In summer, average daily high temperatures in Greenland can rise to slightly above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, partially melting the ice. In the winter, the sheet thickens as additional snow falls, and average daily low temperatures can drop to as low as 20 degrees. So, seeing this information on the chart right here, we can see that low temperatures can drop to as low as 20 degrees in the winter seems slightly off. If we look at this chart from December to March, we can see that low temperatures go down to 12 degrees, from 19 degrees to 12 degrees in the winter time. So we can see that the low temperatures actually drop below 20 degrees. So let's see which of these answer choices accurately reflect the information that we see in our graph. Okay, so let's go through them. A, we already know that as low as 20 degrees is not accurate according to the graph. B, to 12 degrees Fahrenheit seems right because we can see that in March, the temperature drops to 12 degrees Fahrenheit at its average daily low. And C, to their lowest point on December 13th, well, we can see that that's not correct because after December 13th, the temperature keeps dropping. And D, to 10 degrees Fahrenheit and stay there for months. Well, nowhere on this chart do we see a measurement of 10 degrees Fahrenheit because the lowest temperature it decreases to is 12 degrees Fahrenheit. So then we know that our answer choice must be B, to accurately reflect the information that we see in our graph. Question 13 asks, which choice most effectively combines the two sentences at the underlined portion? So let's go over and read these two sentences. Typically, the ice sheet begins to show evidence of thawing in late summer. This follows several weeks of higher temperatures. Okay. So when we want to combine sentences, we want to find a way that combines them in the most concise way possible while keeping the meaning of the sentence. So let's look through the answer choices. Summer following, summer and this thawing follows, summer and such thawing follows, summer and this evidence follows. So for these, what I like to do is test them out in the sentence to see how they sound. So let's first test answer choice A. Typically, the ice sheet begins to show evidence of thawing in late summer, following several weeks of higher temperatures. That sounds pretty great, and it is very concise. How about B? Summer and this thawing follows. Typically, the ice sheet begins to show evidence of thawing in late summer, and this thawing follows several weeks of higher temperatures. While this is grammatically correct, it's slightly wordy, and the meaning from answer choice A is still the same as an answer choice B, but this is much more concise. And we see the same things for answer choices C and D. So we want to choose A because it preserves both the meaning and is concise as opposed to the other answered choices. So for number 14, we want to see how we can effectively change the beginning of this sentence to reflect the information in the paragraph. So we can see at the beginning of the paragraph, we see the word typically, which is that the ice sheet begins to show evidence of thawing in late summer, following several weeks of higher temperatures. But then this information in this sentence, where 14 is, goes against what is typically done, because virtually the entire Greenland ice sheet underwent thawing at or near its surface by mid-July, the earliest date on record. So we see against the usual record of thawing in the late summer, this time it actually thawed in mid-July, which is the earliest date. So we want to see what counteracts this typically word, and through our answer choices, we see however, as such, moreover, and our original, for example. And we want to see a word that signals something that is atypical. And as such would mean something that is similar, moreover, and for example, also follow a sentence where you are elaborating on your original idea. However, what we want to do is show that this situation is abnormal. So with that, the only choice out of those that counteracts your original idea would be however. So that's answer choice B. And a lot of the time for these questions in the writing section, you can also look at your choices and see which one is different from the rest. So we see, for example, as such and moreover are all kind of similar ways of stating the same beginning of a sentence. However is different from the rest of these answer choices. Question 15 wants us to revise but Jason Box, an associate professor of geology at Ohio State, believes that another factor added to the early thaw, the dark snow problem. So what we have here is a non-restrictive modifying clause that we want to use to describe Jason Box. So you can already see here that I've added commas where how I think the sentence should be modified, because we know that an associate professor of geology at Ohio State is extra information we want to use to describe Jason Box. However, it's not necessary for us to have it for the sentence to still flow well. So for example, but Jason Box believes that another factor added to the early thaw, the dark snow problem. So the correct way to punctuate a clause like this would just be to add a comma before the part describing him and then a comma afterwards, so that you can still have the correct noun doing the correct verb. So for these types of problems, I like to see how I can fix it first before looking at the answer choices. So then the answer choice reflecting what I think is C, Box, an associate professor of geology at Ohio State. And then choices A, B, and D don't provide the correct punctuation in this case. So question 16 wants us to fix this section. Believes that another factor added to the early thaw, the dark snow problem. So we can see here that the semicolon wouldn't be the correct punctuation to use because the dark snow problem isn't a sentence on its own. What we want to show is that the factor that did add to the early thaw was the dark snow. So the correct punctuation to use in this case is the colon, because it signals that the other factor is indeed the dark snow. However, choice B, C, and D all include the colon. So which one do we want to choose? Well, usually for these sentences, we want to choose the least wordy choice, and already I see that's C. So if we put that in, would it sound correct? But Jason Box, an associate professor of geology at Ohio State, believes that another factor added to the early thaw, the dark snow problem. All right, that sounds pretty good. So we can see the other ones, thaw, and it was thaw being to have extra words in them, and that don't really add to the meaning of the sentence, so then we know that the correct answer choice is C. Question 17 wants us to revise. According to Box, a leading Greenland expert, tundra fires in 2012 from as far away as North America produced great amounts of soot. Some of it drifted over Greenland in giant plumes of smoke. So we can already see in this sentence the some of it seems pretty awkward. So let's look through our answer choices. We see no change, soot, of which, and delete the underlined portion. So we wouldn't want to delete the underlined portion because then necessary information that the author wants to include wouldn't be included. So we can already cross that out as a choice. And then we see no change would mean that we have two separate independent clauses joined by a comma. And usually to join two independent clauses, you need a conjunction in the middle, like comma and or comma but. However, this would just separate two independent clauses, and that's grammatically incorrect. And we can see if we add soot right here, then this section would also become an independent clause without a conjunction in between. So soot would also be incorrect. And so the only choice that would make sense is of which. And if you put it in your sentence, it connects the two clauses nicely. We can see from as far away as North America produced great amounts of soot, some of which drifted over Greenland. And the sum of which refers to the soot. So these clauses go together well. So we know that the answer must be C. Question 18 we're revising. I'll start from the beginning of this clause. Some of which drifted over Greenland in giant plumes of smoke and then fell as particles onto the ice sheet. So we know that the tense of this sentence is already in the past tense because we have the verb drifted over Iceland and produced a great amount of soot. So we know that whatever verb tense this has to be in must be in the past tense. So we see fell is already in the past tense. And let's look at the other answer choices. So B, falls, no, that's in the present tense. Will fall, that's in the future. And had fallen is in the past. However, it does not match our tense that we have for the other verbs, which is produced and drifted, because otherwise those would say had produced and had drifted. So our best choice is A, which is no change. For question 19, we have, scientists have long known that soot particles facilitate melting by darkening snow and ice, limiting its ability to reflect the sun's rays. So we can already see here that the its doesn't match the number of nouns that we're referring to, because we want to refer to the snow and the ice. However, its refers to something that's singular. So let's see how we can fix that. And also, if we were using its, let's say this was a singular noun, it would still be without the apostrophe, because its with the apostrophe is short for it is. And we want to refer to something as possessive, so something's ability. That means we would want to take out the apostrophe if it was singular. However, we want to change this from singular to multiple noun case. And let's look at our answer choices. So this would be its would be fixing it if it was singular. However, we have snow and ice. There is the wrong form of the possessive there, so we know that's not correct. And so the only thing that would relate to multiple nouns that we're referring to is there, and that's answer choice D. So question 20 asks, which choice best completes the description of a self-reinforcing cycle? So a cycle is like a circle, right? So let's look through our sentence and see what would bring back our result to the beginning of the cycle. As the ice melts, the land and water under the ice become exposed, and since land and water are darker than snow, the surface absorbs even more heat, which is related to the rising temperatures. Okay, so we know that the beginning of the cycle is that the ice melts, then land and water under the ice become exposed, and then the surface absorbs more heat. And then the temperature rises again, which leads to the ice melting. So what we have now does indirectly indicate that the ice will melt afterwards. However, we want to just more directly say that the ice melts and then the land water is exposed, the surface absorbs heat, and then this all happens again. So whichever answer choices would best show this. Let's see. Raises the surface temperature, begins to cool at a certain point, leads to additional melting. So we can see the beginning of our cycle that we mentioned was that the ice melts, so that the best answer choice that relates to this is D. The other ones, both answer choice B raises the surface temperature, and A, no change, is related to the rising temperatures, indirectly state that the ice kind of indicate that the ice will melt, but we want to just, say it as directly and concisely as we can. And C is just the complete opposite of what we want, because we know that the cycle means that the ice will melt and not cool. Make changes that you think are reasonable first, and then look at the answer choices. Also, you want to choose the most concise and non-repetitive answer that's grammatically correct. Also, if you have a question that asks what's the correct transition to come in here, or what is the tone of this writing portion, then it's good to look at the answers first and eliminate the choices that seem pretty similar, because they wouldn't ask you to determine the difference between two extremely similar answer choices. And when you're changing verbs, make sure you know what the subject is that the verb is referring to and whether or not the subject is plural or singular. And for questions about tense, see what tense comes before and after the portion you're to revise, and see what verb tense would match those verbs. And make sure you know the difference between its, which is short for it is, and its without the apostrophe, which is the possessive form, and also the difference between there, and there. The first there is when you're describing something over there. The second one is a contraction for they are, and the third is the possessive form of there.